Jason's heart raced as he stared at the computer screen, the damning evidence flickering before his eyes. Hidden cameras, all linked to a single IP address. Karen's IP address. How could this be happening? He thought he had finally found peace after moving out of their shared home, but now it felt like the nightmare was only just beginning. Hands trembling, Jason scrolled through the footage, his stomach twisting with a mix of fury and violation. There were cameras in every room, the living room, the kitchen, even the bathroom. Karen had been watching his every move, invading his privacy in the most disturbing way. Bile rose in his throat as he watched himself going about his daily routine, unaware that he was being monitored. The realization that he had never truly been alone, that his every step had been scrutinized, made him feel sick to his core. With a deep breath, Jason tried to calm his nerves and think rationally. He needed to act quickly, but what could he do? The evidence was damning, and he knew Karen would never admit to her wrongdoing. She would twist the narrative, try to paint him as the villain. Jaw clenched, Jason knew he had to confront her. He had to face this head-on, no matter how terrifying the prospect. Grabbing his phone, he dialed her number, his fingers trembling as he waited for her to answer. "Karen, we need to talk," he said, his voice strained. "Jason, what's wrong?" Karen's voice was laced with concern, but Jason knew better than to trust it. "I found the cameras, Karen. I know you've been spying on me. How could you do this?" The words rushed out, a mixture of anger and disbelief. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line, and then Karen's voice changed, becoming sharp and accusatory. "Cameras? What are you talking about? Jason, are you accusing me of something? I haven't done anything wrong." Jason gripped the phone tighter, his knuckles turning white. "Don't lie to me, Karen. I have the evidence. I traced the cameras back to your IP address. You've been watching me this whole time." "That's ridiculous." Karen's voice rose in pitch, a telltale sign that she was losing her composure. "You must have hacked into my network or something. I would never do something like that. Don't try to turn this around on me, Karen. I know what I've found, and it's clear you've been invading my privacy. This is a serious violation, and I won't let you get away with it." The line went silent for a moment, and then Karen's voice returned, dripping with venom. "Fine, Jason. If that's how you want to play it, then so be it. You're going to regret this." Before Jason could respond, the line went dead, leaving him to stare at the incriminating footage with a growing sense of dread. He knew this was far from over, and the thought of what Karen might do next sent a chill down his spine. Jason's hands shook as he paced the living room, his mind racing with possibilities. After the confrontation with Karen, he knew he had to act quickly, but the weight of the situation made every decision feel like a tightrope walk. He glanced back at the computer screen, the hidden camera footage still playing in a continuous loop. The violation he felt was so deeply personal, a violation of his own sanctuary. The thought of Karen's prying eyes watching his every move made his skin crawl. Gritting his teeth, Jason decided he needed to gather more evidence. He couldn't rely solely on the camera footage. He needed to build an ironclad case against Karen's unlawful surveillance. Quickly, he began searching for any other signs of hidden devices, scouring every corner of his home for any suspicious wires or devices. As he moved from room to room, his sense of unease only grew. The knowledge that Karen had been watching him, that she had invaded his private life in such a disturbing way, was overwhelming. He felt as if the walls were closing in, that his own home had become a prison. Finally, after hours of searching, Jason located a second camera hidden behind a bookshelf. His heart sank as he realized the extent of Karen's actions. This was no isolated incident. She had meticulously planned this, determined to keep tabs on him at all times. With a deep breath, Jason carefully removed the camera, determined to use it as further evidence against Karen's wrongdoing. As he studied the device, his mind raced with possibilities. What else had she done? Had she accessed his computer, his phone, his personal files. The thought made his stomach turn. Clutching the camera in his hand, Jason knew he had to take action. He couldn't let Karen's violation of his privacy go unchallenged. But as he contemplated his next move, he couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. Karen was unpredictable, and he knew she would stop at nothing to defend her actions. The stakes were high, and Jason knew he was treading on dangerous ground. But he was determined to expose the truth, no matter the cost. With a newfound resolve, he set about preparing for the confrontation that was sure to come. Jason's fingers trembled as he scrolled through his phone, searching for the number of a local law enforcement officer he could trust. After the shocking discovery of the hidden cameras in his home, linked directly to Karen's IP address, he knew he had to take this matter to the authorities. As he scrolled, his mind raced with the implications of what he had uncovered. Karen had violated his privacy in the most egregious way, invading the sanctity of his own home and turning it into a virtual surveillance state. The thought made his stomach churn with a mix of anger and violation. Finally, he found the number he was looking for. A detective he had worked with on a previous case. Taking a deep breath, he dialed the number and waited anxiously for the call to connect. "Detective Johnson, this is Jason," he said, his voice tight with tension. "I'm in a really serious situation and I need your help." "Jason, what's going on?" The detective's voice was calm and collected, a stark contrast to Jason's frayed nerves. I found hidden cameras in my home," Jason began, the words tumbling out in a rushed, emotional torrent. "They're all linked to my ex-wife's IP address. She's been spying on me, detective. Watching my every move, invading my privacy in the most horrific way." There was a brief pause on the other end of the line, and Jason could almost hear the detective's mind working, processing the gravity of the situation. "That's a very serious allegation, Jason," the detective said finally, his tone measured. "Do you have any physical evidence to support your claim?" Yes, I do," Jason replied, his grip on the phone tightening. "I've got the cameras and the footage they've been recording. I need you to come over and take a look, detective. This is a clear violation of my privacy, and I want to press charges against Karen." Another pause, and then the detective spoke again. "All right, Jason, I'll head over there as soon as I can. But I need you to stay calm and collected, okay? Don't do anything rash until I've had a chance to assess the situation." Jason nodded, even though he knew the detective couldn't see him. "I'll try, detective. But this is just so messed up. I can't believe Karen would do something like this." "I understand, Jason," the detective said, his voice reassuring. "Just hang tight, and I'll be there as soon as possible. We'll get to the bottom of this, I promise." As Jason hung up the phone, he felt a small glimmer of hope. Finally, he had someone on his side, someone who could help him navigate the treacherous waters of Karen's betrayal. But even as that hope flickered, he couldn't shake the overwhelming sense of dread that had been weighing on him since the discovery. Detective Johnson arrived at Jason's doorstep, his face etched with a mixture of concern and determination. As Jason ushered him inside, the gravity of the situation became palpable, the air thick with tension. Wasting no time, Jason led the detective to his computer, where the incriminating footage from the hidden cameras played in an endless loop. He watched as the detective's brow furrowed, his eyes narrowing as he studied the evidence. "This is quite serious, Jason," the detective said, his voice low and measured. "The placement of these cameras, the way they're linked to your ex-wife's IP address, it's all very damning." Jason nodded, his fingers clenching and unclenching involuntarily. "I know, detective. That's why I called you. I need to put a stop to this, to hold Karen accountable for her actions." The detective turned to face Jason, his expression grave. "I understand your urgency, but we need to proceed carefully here. Karen could claim that you fabricated this evidence or that you've hacked into her network. We need to make sure everything is by the book." Jason's heart sank the weight of the detective's words settling heavily on his shoulders. "So what do we do?" he asked, his voice laced with frustration. "First, I'll need to confiscate the cameras and the footage," the detective replied. "We'll have our tech team analyze the data, ensure it's authentic and untampered. Then, we'll need to confront Karen and give her a chance to explain herself." "Explain herself?" Jason scoffed, his temper flaring. "There's no explanation for this, detective. She's been spying on me, violating my privacy in the worst possible way. She needs to be held accountable." The detective raised a hand, his expression calm but firm. "I understand your anger, Jason, but we have to do this the right way. If we want this to hold up in court, we need to follow proper procedure. Otherwise, Karen could walk away from this scot-free." Jason clenched his jaw, the muscles in his neck straining with the effort to contain his emotions. He knew the detective was right, that they had to play by the rules, but the thought of Karen evading justice was almost too much to bear. "All right," he said finally, his voice tight with resignation. "What do you need me to do?" "Just cooperate fully with the investigation," the detective replied, his hand resting briefly on Jason's shoulder. "We'll get to the bottom of this, I promise. But we have to do it the right way." As the detective began the process of collecting the evidence, Jason felt a small spark of hope ignite within him. Maybe, just maybe, he could finally put an end to Karen's reign of terror. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity, as the detective and his team meticulously analyzed the evidence Jason had uncovered. Jason found himself on edge, his nerves frayed as he waited anxiously for any developments in the case. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the detective called with an update. "Jason, we've completed our analysis of the cameras and the footage. The evidence is rock solid. There's no doubt that the cameras are linked to Karen's IP address." Jason let out a shaky breath, a mixture of relief and trepidation coursing through him. "So what happens now?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Now we bring Karen in for questioning," the detective replied, his tone serious. "We'll give her a chance to explain herself, but based on the evidence, I think we have a strong case against her." Jason nodded, his mind racing with the implications. "Do you think she'll admit to it? Or will she try to deny everything?" The detective paused for a moment, his brow furrowed in thought. "It's hard to say for sure. Karen may try to spin this, claim that you fabricated the evidence or hacked into her network. But with the forensic analysis we've done, that's going to be a tough sell." "I just want this to be over," Jason said, his voice tinged with frustration. "I'd want her to be held accountable for what she's done." "I understand, Jason," the detective replied, his voice reassuring. "We're going to do everything in our power to make sure that happens. But I need you to be prepared. Karen may not go down without a fight." Jason felt a shiver run down his spine at the detective's words. He knew Karen all too well, and he had no doubt that she would pull out all the stops to try and save herself. The thought of facing her again, of having to confront the full extent of her betrayal, made his stomach churn. "When do we meet with her?" he asked, steeling himself for the confrontation to come. "I'll be in touch with the details," the detective replied. "In the meantime, I need you to stay focused and keep your emotions in check. This is going to be a tough battle, but we're going to win it." As Jason hung up the phone, he took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. He knew that the road ahead would be arduous, but he was determined to see this through. Karen's reign of terror had to come to an end, no matter the cost. The air in the interrogation room was thick with tension as Karen sat across from Detective Johnson, her eyes narrowed with suspicion. "So, let me get this straight," she said, her voice dripping with false innocence. "You're accusing me of installing hidden cameras in Jason's home and spying on him." The detective's expression remained impassive as he leaned forward, his hands folded on the table. "That's correct, Ms. Thompson. We have substantial evidence that links the cameras found in Jason's home directly to your IP address." Karen scoffed, her lips curling into a derisive smile. That's ridiculous. Jason must have planted those cameras himself or hacked into my network. I would never do something like that. We've had our forensics team analyze the evidence, Miss Thompson, the detective replied, his tone unwavering. The cameras are authentic, and the footage they've captured is unaltered. It's clear that you've been illegally monitoring Jason's activities in his own home. Karen's eyes narrowed as she leaned back in her chair, her arms crossed defiantly over her chest. Well, I'm sorry, but I don't believe you. This is just another one of Jason's attempts to make me look bad. He's always been jealous of my success, and now he's trying to ruin my life. The detective's expression darkened as he slid a stack of photographs across the table. These images speak for themselves, Miss Thompson. They show the placement of the cameras, the angles they were recording from, and the clear connection to your IP address. You can't deny this. Karen's face paled as she flipped through the photographs, her fingers trembling slightly. For a moment, Jason thought he saw a flicker of panic in her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a mask of indignation. This is all circumstantial evidence, she spat, her voice rising in pitch. You have no proof that I was the one who installed those cameras. For all you know, Jason could have staged this whole thing to get back at me. The detective shook his head, his expression uncompromising. I'm afraid that's not going to fly, Ms. Thompson. The forensic analysis we've conducted leaves no room for doubt. You're going to have to do better than that if you want to avoid being charged with illegal surveillance and invasion of privacy. Karen's jaw tightened, and for a moment, Jason thought she might lash out. But then, a slow, calculating smile spread across her face, and he felt a chill run down his spine. Well, detective, if you're so confident in your evidence, then I suppose we'll just have to take this to court. I have the best lawyers money can buy, and I'm not going down without a fight. The detective nodded, his expression grim. So be it, Ms. Thompson. We'll see you in court. As the detective escorted Karen out of the room, Jason felt a mix of emotions, relief, anger, and a deep sense of unease. He knew that this was far from over, and that Karen was more than willing to pull out all the stops to protect herself. The courtroom was a cauldron of tension as the trial against Karen began. Jason sat rigidly in the witness box, his heart pounding as he recounted the chilling discovery of the hidden cameras in his home. Under the scrutiny of Karen's high-priced legal team, he meticulously described the footage he had uncovered, the violation he had felt as he watched his most private moments being recorded and monitored. The detective and his forensic experts followed, presenting the damning evidence that linked the cameras directly to Karen's IP address. But Karen, with her steely composure and unwavering denials, refused to back down. She painted a picture of Jason as a scorned ex-husband, desperate to concoct a scheme to tarnish her reputation and ruin her life. This is all a fabrication, she declared, her voice dripping with indignation. Jason has a history of making false accusations against me, and I won't stand for it. These cameras could have been planted by anyone, and the so-called evidence is nothing more than a desperate attempt to frame me. Jason felt his hands tremble as he listened to Karen's lies, his anger and frustration bubbling to the surface. How dare she twist a narrative, to portray herself as the victim when she was the one who had violated his privacy in the most egregious way. But the judge, swayed by Karen's high-powered legal team, seemed to be buying into her version of events. The case had become a battle of credibility, and Jason feared that the scales were tipping in Karen's favor. As the trial wore on, the tension in the courtroom reached a fever pitch. Witnesses were called, cross-examinations grew heated, and the battle lines were drawn ever more clearly. It was a high-stakes game of legal chess, with Karen's freedom and Jason's sense of security hanging in the balance. Finally, the closing arguments were presented, and the jury was left to deliver it. Jason sat, his stomach in knots, as he waited for the verdict that would determine the fate of his case against Karen. Would the jury see through her lies and deception? Or would Karen once again emerge victorious, her crimes swept under the rug and her sense of entitlement reinforced. The waiting was agonizing, and Jason felt as if the very air in the courtroom was thick with tension. As the jury filed back in, he braced himself for the verdict that would shape the course of his life. The silence in the courtroom was deafening as the jury foreman stood to deliver the verdict. Jason's heart pounded in his chest, his palms sweaty with anticipation. On the charge of illegal surveillance and invasion of privacy, we the jury find the defendant, Karen Thompson, guilty as charged. A collective gasp swept through the room, and Jason felt a wave of relief and vindication wash over him. Karen's face contorted with shock and fury, her carefully constructed facade crumbling before his eyes. The judge's gavel slammed down, restoring order to the courtroom. Miss Thompson, you are hereby sentenced to 2 years in prison and a fine of $50,000 for your crimes. This court will not tolerate such egregious violations of privacy and personal security. As the bailiffs moved in to escort Karen from the room, she turned to Jason, her eyes narrowed with pure hatred. This isn't over, Jason, she hissed through clenched teeth. I'll make you pay for this, I swear it. Jason stood his ground, his chin raised defiantly. You're the one who's going to pay, Karen. Your reign of terror is over. I won't let you terrorize me or anyone else ever again. As Karen was led away, Jason felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The long, arduous battle had been won, and he could finally start to rebuild his life, free from the constant fear and violation he had endured. But even as he savored the victory, he knew that the scars left by Karen's actions would not heal overnight. The trust he had once placed in her had been shattered, and the memories of her betrayal would linger, a haunting reminder of the lengths she had been willing to go to maintain her control. Still, as he walked out of the courtroom, Jason felt a sense of pride and determination. He had stood up to Karen's abuse, and he had won. It was a small victory in the grand scheme of things, but it was a start, a testament to the power of perseverance and the importance of seeking justice, no matter the personal cost. With a deep breath, Jason set his sights on the future, determined to move forward and reclaim the life that Karen had tried so hard to take from him. The road ahead might be long and difficult, but he was ready to face it, armed with the knowledge that he had the strength and resilience to overcome even the most daunting of challenges.